How do you do? Mr. Brian Peters feels it would be a little unkind to present this podcast, gravely amusing, without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold an episode from the mind of Brian Peters, a fan of pop culture who sought to create a podcast after his own image, without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest podcasts ever listened to. It deals with two great fandoms of pop culture, humor, and horror. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such strain, now's your chance to, well, we warned you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a new season of Gravely Amusing, the only horror history podcast that can't tell anymore if our wives are demonically possessed or if that's just their personality. We don't know. I'm your man-child of the macabre, your host on this crazy ride, the one and only Brian Peters. So last September, if you've been following the podcast or if you haven't, last September I launched this podcast with the idea and hope to not only hang out with my friends and family and talk about ghosts and goblins and all kinds of spooky stuff, but to educate the masses on the history of horror and pop culture. So whether it's literature, movies, TV, folklore, ghost stories, what have you, I wanted to talk about it all. Not only because it's my passion, it's my love, but a lot of people watch a lot of modern horror and they don't know anything about old horror. So I wanted to put that into this podcast. And that's why my first season was focused on classic literature, classic monsters, the universal monsters to be more specific. My favorite monsters. They ruled the 20s and 40s as cinema came about in the Great Depression. And that's where horror film kind of got its footing as we transitioned from silent movies to going into sound. And I talked about that all through season one. So going through the history of horror as we now enter season two of Gravely Amusing, what is the next chapter? Like, what's the next step? Well, it's the 1950s. 40s, 50s. I mean, come on, people, use math. The 50s was full of the rise of sci-fi, the rise of science fiction. So if you ever saw Back to the Future, which if you haven't, I don't know if we can be friends or not, but in Back to the Future in 1955, when he travels it, his dad is so obsessed with sci-fi. And that's why the Darth Vader joke worked to scare his dad, because sci-fi was a new thing. We got this intro to aliens, to bug-eyed monsters, and of course, kaiju. So if you never heard that term before, kaiju, if you never watched Pacific Rim or any type of big giant monster movie, what a kaiju is, it's a Japanese word meaning strange creature. In English, it basically is translated to monster or giant monster. So we're starting this season, and we're going to focus a lot on aliens and folklore and cryptids and stuff this season, and the movies of the 50s, of course. But we're going to start this season with the king of the monsters, God Mother Flippin' Zilla. And I have with me tonight the king of the cousins. That my cousin, one of my best pals, known me my whole life because he's just a little bit older than me. My cousin, the Steveweiser, Stephen Cope. What's up, man?
What's up, man?
I'm so happy you're here, Steve.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. Well, I mean, Steve and I grew up together watching monster stuff, superhero stuff, wrestling, mainly The Undertaker, who's our favorite. And Steve just has a great taste in things as supernatural, horror, serial killers. Like, he's my boy. He's basically my brother. So I'm so glad to have him here with me on Gravely Amusing. So, Steve Weiser, my man, let's talk Godzilla. And listeners, please know we do not speak Japanese. Our parents weren't rich. They didn't teach us good things, things that matter that would benefit us in life. They basically, just taught us to eat food and, hey, you have to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing our best to pronounce these names. So let's begin this podcast, Steve, with a segment I like to call I Pee the Fool. This is where I give you, and Steve's going to give you, just enough about a subject so you don't look like a fool if you're among geeks and they want to quiz you. Because how many times do you might not know something about a topic and you just kind of look stupid and they're like, you're not a real fan? Well, you're going to know so much about Godzilla that you'll be able to poop atomic breath. But that's like if you eat Taco Bell and White Castle on the same day, which I have done before, but that's a whole nother story. And yes, your butthole will hurt. I ironically was going to a Raw that day in Cleveland, and I had Taco Bell for lunch, and then like right before dinner when the show happened, it was like right before WrestleMania when The Rock was facing Cena. Yeah, in like 2011. I I sat like near the entrance, and there was this kid in front of me, and like
God.
where we're like my legs are spread eagle, man, and the whole time I was gonna the whole time like my stomach was rumbling. So when like pyro went off, I would fart like right on this kid's head, and like when Cade's pyro came off, it was perfect. Like I let out a big one because it was so loud.
Yeah.
And like the whole time, the mom's like, "What the heck is this?" And the kids just like, it was great. It was awesome. It was fantastic. But I was sitting next to my buddy Mike, who at the time was another fat guy. So, like I could kind of blame it on him. Like it's important to try to like bring other fat guys with you. So anyway, I ruined that kid's life, and I think he was choking when The Rock came out. Like I don't even think he saw The Rock come out.
Oh God.
So I ruined that kid's life. That's what I do here. We're about
Man.
horror and humor here. So, Steve Weiser, let's get dangerous. Who is Godzilla?
Well, I got that information for you. So Godzilla is basically a prehistoric reptilian / dinosaur like monster that in time awakened because of all the nuclear radiation and the nuclear tests which he fed on. Some say Godzilla was created because of the nuclear weapons going on, and I mean, the United States, considering we bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II. So there was a lot of fear, and that's how they kind of represented Godzilla with the nuclear bombs in the USA. A lot of films portrayed the Godzilla as this kind of like horror figure. Like they used a lot of horror type things with him at first. Um, and then eventually he became what we call now like anti-hero, where he defends humanity kinda, even though he's destroying everything from other monsters or anything else that would threaten things. So the current American movies from the MonsterVerse show Godzilla as like your superhero, defending the world from other monsters or anything, while the Japanese seem to make him more like horror and scary as he was originally created. Godzilla usually fights other monsters, which, like Brian said, they call Kaijus in these films, and they have big battles, which causes a lot of destruction.
Yeah, baby.
In many street fights he has with all these monsters that come.
I'm waiting
Godzilla's
for Godzilla to just like bring out a chair and just start
mm,
like, oh my
yep.
gosh, he's broken in half.
Yeah, that would be funny. But Godzilla's been in a lot of Japanese films, 33, produced by Toho Studios. And then you got the 5 American films, including, unfortunately, the 1998 film, which took Godzilla's look to a whole new direction.
In a few years, when I get to the 90s and we talk about that movie, like, wow. Yeah. When we get to 1980, I'm going to have a lot to say about that. So,
Yeah, I mean, it was in my childhood, but come on, we'll talk about that another time. And
yeah.
then you had the 4 MonsterVerse movies. He's been in various other things like I don't know, Monarch, if anybody has seen that. I don't know if you've seen it, Brian, on Apple TV being the
I
most
have not
recent
finished
thing.
the show yet.
Oh, it's good. I'm like waiting for more. Like
I will have it finished by the time we talk about King Kong Godzilla in a few weeks.
uh
I will have finished it because we're going to talk about it.
yeah,
Um,
it's really, really good. Like I was shocked. So, and then he's been in comics, video games, toys, and so on and so on.
so Steve, I got to ask you.
Okay.
And I probably put it in our notes to ask you later, but I have to ask you. What do you prefer? Do you prefer Godzilla being a creature of horror and more like a horror movie where this looming threat is, or you prefer him more like a superhero fighting these other monsters and defending humanity, kind of like America's doing?
Um, I kind of like both, but if I had to choose one, I would definitely lean more towards the horror type. Because I mean, he's
I'm
a
totally with you. I think it's good we have both.
yeah.
Like I because I like Godzilla facing other monsters
Mhm.
and being like, defending humanity. Like I like the legendary movies where they're going.
Yeah.
They're not perfect.
No, not at all.
Shin God, or -1 was perfect. But
Mm.
but and we will be talking about that in a
Yes.
bit. But I like it. I like both, but I'm with you. I prefer the horror stuff because I like that looming threat, and I think you get more of a personal story. Whereas, like with the MonsterVerse of America, the MonsterVerse should have been for classic Universal monsters, but whatever.
Yeah.
The Kaiju verse, I want to
Yeah.
call it. Um, I think there's a place for it, but I think you lose that human connection and that impact that you do when it's a horror movie.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that because in the newer movies, the monster verses, yeah, um, you really don't pay attention much to the human aspect of it. You're more there for like Godzilla versus whatever monsters in it, King Kong,
Absolutely, man.
Ghidorah, all that. But then you go and watch these Japanese ones, including Godzilla -1, and you're like they like draw you in with the human factor more than the monster almost sometimes. And that's what
The
I
movie was
like.
so good.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I would have to say horror, definitely horror. So, well, Godzilla's first appearance was in the 1954 black and white movie from Japan. And of course, as we mentioned, his latest appearance was in Godzilla -1, which was perfect. I mean, perfect.
One of not only one of the greatest Godzilla movies, but one of the greatest movies I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I usually am the type to not like subtitles and have to read and all that, but I
Try
just
being
couldn't
deaf.
help keeping oh yeah, of course for you it's nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I couldn't help it not to like read it and like get into it. So yeah, it was really, really good. I can't wait to get it on Blu-ray whenever it comes out.
Someday.
He was created, and sorry about my pronunciation of these names, Tomoyuki Tanaka and Eiji Tishibura and Ashir Honda, who co-wrote it,
You did pretty
co-wrote
good there.
and directed the first film. Yeah, I tried. He was also designed by Akira Watabe and Tez Toshimitsu.
Akira Watanabe and Tezu Toshimitsu.
Yeah, I'm terrible with these type
I
names,
guess I
man.
watch a little bit more Japanese than you.
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
Ken Watanabe that plays Serizawa in the legendary movies. Played
Okay.
Ra's al Ghul,
Okay, yeah.
you know, big American Japanese actor. Yeah,
That's what I thought
Watanabe.
it was pronounced, but I'm like, it's too right on the nose
It's
for
okay.
it.
We already did the disclaimer. We can't pronounce it.
Which is important to note because he's just not another dinosaur like from Jurassic Park or whatever. He's has a unique design, and I mean it changes from movie to movie and the way they want to do it, but it's thanks to these guys that we have kind of a base Godzilla.
So interesting thing, Steve, if I may jump in. Um, I did not know this, but Godzilla was based off of another 50s monster movie that we are going to talk about and in a few months, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
Oh geez, I didn't even know that. I've never even heard of
Like
that
I never
movie.
like I think I kind of heard about that movie cuz I am a big movie buff. But I've never seen it. Like that's another thing I'm excited about this season is there's so many movies we're going to touch that I've never seen before.
Yeah, me too.
And so like we're going in fresh just like our listeners will be. Um, and to know that Godzilla was inspired by another movie, like that's just interesting because the idea.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're gonna watch that later. Anyway, go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry.
Okay, so he was inspired, but the creators still did their own thing the whole look of bulky with scales or something all over his skin with the short T-Rex type arms and stuff. Um he was designed to be amphibious, monster brand like loose concept of a dinosaur. He looks to be put together by art director Akira Wannabe to be this combined like Tyrannosaurus Rex, Iguanodon, and a Stegosaurus with a little alligator mixture to him.
He's a damn mutt.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. He stands erect as green, but more often he has like a gray scale skin that's textured based on here survivors of Hiroshima.
Do
Sometimes
you
he's even given scars from battles he's had.
do you prefer him being green or like gray?
I think it would have to be. I think the best is like a little mix of both. Like you give him that gray, but you
Yeah,
give like a dark green, like because he does go in the ocean and stuff. You would think
sure.
being close to a reptilian and stuff that you would get that. But yeah, I think it would be. I don't think it's one or the other. I think it would have to be a mix.
I I think like I like the gray and green hue, but I
Hmm.
really like scars on him and battle wounds
Yeah,
because like
definitely.
these victims of the Japanese, nuclear radiation and attacks. Like I like that symbolism. I really, really like that's artistic. That's cinema, baby.
Hmm.
Mwah. I love it.
Yep. Yep. Um, he has very short but very muscular arms, kind of like T-Rex, but on steroids. And he has these badass bony spikes that go from his like bottom of his neck the whole way down to his tail. Um, and sometimes they will shoot out, but most of the time you see it lights up for that amazing finish move that Brian will get into in a second. So, but yep,
I
on to you.
I when that lights up and those scales shoot out like one by one and it like glows. I think it's one of the most badass freaking things in the world.
Yeah.
Like, and I think minus one depicted this the best
Oh yeah.
because, like in the original Godzilla movie, the atomic breath, it the scales do pop out, but it's only like one time, and then he uses the breath several other times, but there's no light up, and
Hmm.
they don't make it clear in the original movie how much time he has to like recharge. That's what I really appreciate about minus one is they said, okay, he used the atomic breath. We only have so much time before he recharges. We got to attack.
Yeah, they explained it
I love
better.
that. It's important in these for monsters and superheroes, whatever, that they do have a weakness. Like even if it's just a little one, that
Yeah,
we have a weakness where
it could be
So I
exploited
love
or
that.
something. Yeah.
So listeners, where did Godzilla get his name? Well, and I did not know this before, so it blew my mind. So Godzilla is the English name, or like the romanization of the word Gojira. So the first Godzilla movie, sometimes you'll see Gojira. That is the same movie. Like it's the original one. And Gojira in Japanese translates to whale's vagina. Just kidding. That's San Diego.
Uh,
The most widely accepted rumor of the name's origin is that producer Tomoyuki Tanaka named the monster after a big Toho worker, Shiro Amakura, who was like a chief of the theater club of Toho. And they jokingly nicknamed this dude Gojira, which is a combination of the Japanese words goria or gorilla and kojira, which is whale. So basically, Gojira means gorilla whale. And this guy had a big build who looked like a gorilla and he ate whale meat a lot. So they're like, hey, Gojira, yeah, whatever. This account of the name was acknowledged by Toho themselves, the director, Ashiro Honda, producer, Tanaka, special effects director. Like all these people acknowledge this is where it came about. But in this documentary in 1998 that probably came out when the American Godzilla movie came out, the widow of Honda goes out and says, no, that's not how it happened. Like, I mean, I don't think she was there when they were making the stuff. I don't think she was in the office, but she's like dismissing the whole story in this documentary and says that they gave it like considerable thought to the name of the monster. The backstage boys at Toho love to joke around with tall stories, but I don't believe it was named after this guy. But she wasn't there, so I really believe that it was probably named after this guy. So, and even Honda's longtime assistant director, Koji Kajita, he added, like, those of us who are closest to them don't know how they came up with it, but I believe that it probably was named after this guy. So, you believe what you want. Toho later translated the monster's Japanese name as Godzilla, as I said, for overseas distribution. So God means, God, God. And Zilla, like Bridezilla, uh, Quesadzilla, whatever, it means monstrous thing. It means very big thing. So his name literally means, God of the monsters or king of the monsters, as we call him. But Gojira, I think that name kind of sounds also badass. And I would love to see him face off against a whale gorilla type monster. Like, I don't know. I just want to see it.
yeah.
So, but the Godzilla, or the King of the Monsters, the first recorded foreign usage of Godzilla, like the first time the name was printed, was actually in a Hawaii Tribune Herald, so in a Hawaii newspaper to promote the movie in November 20th, 1955. So Godzilla has been portrayed on screen in a rubber suit, motion capture, or voice effects by the following actors. So in the Showa era, which is like the first 15 films of the movie until we get to like the 80s, so the original era, he was played, and I'm going to butcher these names, like really sorry, by Haru Nakajima, Katsumi Tezuka, Hiroshi Sakada, Seiji Onaka, Shinji Takagi, Aiso Zushi, and Taro Kawai. So those gentlemen have either wore suits or did motion capture to portray Godzilla. In the Hanna-Barbera cartoon, which we will get to in a few seasons in the future, he was voiced by Ted Cassidy. Who? What other voices did Ted Cassidy do? Let's see here. I wonder. Oh, he did science fiction works in Star Trek. He did some work on I Dream of Jeannie. He was a narrator of the Incredible Hulk TV series. So when he's like David, or David Bruce Banner, Mild Mannered, whatever. He also did the voice of Lurch in the Addams Family in the mid '60s. So he's done a lot of voices, and he's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, hell yeah. Shout out to Ted Cassidy. And he also was portrayed in the Hensai area. So the Hensai era is from 1985 to like the 2000s. It's that's where Godzilla gets really crazy. So that's that area. He was portrayed by Kenpachiro Sadzuma. And then in the Millennium era, which is like Godzilla, 2000 and Final Wars and like other crazy stuff, he was portrayed by Tatsumu Kitagawa, Mijuhu Yoshida. And then in the Reiwa era, which I think is where we're at now, he's portrayed by Mansai Nomura. In TriStar Pictures, which was the 1998 movie,
Yeah.
he was portrayed by Kurt Harley, and he was voiced with vocal effects by Frank Welker. And if you don't know who Frank Welker is, Frank Welker did the voice for Fred and Scooby Doo. He's done the voice of Baby Kermit and the Muppet Babies, Oswald, the Lucky Rabbit, Epic Mickey, the video game. He's done the voice of Megatron, Galvatron, Soundwave. He is a big, big deal.
Wait,
Also, the voice.
are you talking about the movies?
So he did like voice effects.
Yeah, for
like
Megatron. Was he the
1980s.
voice in the movies for Megatron?
Yes, I believe so. Yes, sir.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Voice of Megatron. He's done Simpson work. He's also the voice of Shao Kahn in the 1995 movie. He did the voice of course Curious George. Well, of course, Curious George. Oh, he was Garfield on the Garfield show as a kid. Like Frank Welker is a big deal.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Jeez.
Yeah, like he's the dude's a beast. So that is Frank Welker. I might have went and missed my space. Oh well. Okay. So yeah. So, and I don't think I missed anybody. Okay. So, the mocap for the current Godzilla and Legendary movies, the MonsterVerse, is played by T.J. Storm. Okay. So I got everybody. It's important to give credit where credit's due. So let's get to Godzilla's abilities. What makes him the king of the monsters? And we've already touched on this a little bit. So when Godzilla wants to take you down, he will lift you on his shoulders in a fireman's carry and slam you to the ground and give you an FU.
And then don't forget, you can't see me.
You can't see me because I'm going in the ocean. But his main move is his atomic heat beam or his atomic breath. The very best depiction of this, as we said already, is in Godzilla -1. Holy crap, it's so freaking good. And I hope it comes out to streaming by the end of the month, because if it does, like we're totally doing a whole episode with Dre with it. We went and saw it with Dre in December. It's so good.
Yeah.
So the atomic breath is like stored nuclear energy that he shoots out of his mouth as a laser beam. In earlier films, because of budget reasons, and special effects, it was like a can of compressed gas, like almost like a fire extinguisher almost, or
Yeah,
like dusting your computer, like
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of Superman's freeze breath, the way it looked in the first movie, just like air, like the air
I'm
coming out
glad
of
you
his
said
mouth.
that because, like, in the first movie, does he use freeze breath? It almost seems like in one scene that he actually freezes something.
It looks like it, but I think that was just their representation of the atomic breath.
Okay.
But as soon as I saw it, it reminded me of like the
Yeah.
freeze breath from Superman.
Well, yeah, it's still, yeah, it was exactly like that. Um, in some later movies, it's actually hand drawn and or it's a computer generated flame. So you literally see like Godzilla use it, and then like I think it's like a red and orange, like like just
Like
fiery
squiggle
thing.
lines and stuff.
Like, I don't know, like someone did this in like film college. Like
Gee.
it's so funny. It's like it's when they enter the late 60s and 70s, and it gets really ridiculous. But regardless, Atomic Breath is pretty badass. Um, Godzilla has immense physical strength. He has a long tail that he whips back and forth. And a fun fact, Haru Nakajima, who played Godzilla in the original films, was a black belt in judo, and he choreographed the fight scenes for Godzilla. So I guess like you can say, Godzilla knows judo, as in you don't know who you're messing with. But so I'm stupid. I'm stupid. I know. Godzilla is amphibious. He mostly lives in the ocean. And an interesting thing that I found in my research, he has poor shaped gills for living underwater. So a lot of people are like, well, how the hell does he like breathe underwater? Like he's amphibious stuff. He has, like I don't know, like toes, whatever. He has poor shaped gills that like help him live underwater.
Mhm.
He is immune to gunfire, missiles, pretty much anything that you can hit him with. It doesn't do anything. Also, some versions of Godzilla actually have him regenerating from wounds.
Hmm.
I think minus one did it. Like he will regenerate. So that makes him even like pretty much the Wolverine of of monsters. I'm pretty sure Deadpool is descended from this guy, but um, now various films. Now I want to keep it. I want everybody to know I have not seen every Godzilla movie. I have
Yeah,
not.
me too.
Um, but various films, non-canonical television shows, comics, games, whatever, they do give Godzilla additional powers, just like Superman. Like in
Yeah.
Superman 2, where he touches the ass and he throws this plastic, cling wrap to people, like whatever, stupid. Um, you know, I can't. That's the most stupidest power they've ever gave Superman. But whatever. Um, but additional powers are like an atomic pulse, magnetism. So I think like he gives off like an EMP, precognition, so he knows what's coming. Fireballs, converting electromagnetic energy into intense body heat to make himself like really hot. Converting blood into temporary tentacle limbs, which I believe I just got the Blu-ray. I haven't watched it yet, but I believe that happens in Shin Godzilla.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I haven't
Uh,
seen that one, so
which
I don't
Yeah,
know.
we'll have to watch it. We'll have to watch it. Um, yeah, we'll have to watch it together or whatever. Um, he has an electrical bite, superhuman speed, heat vision, and even flight. So I know I've seen a GIF or whatever or GIF whatever of like Godzilla like sliding on his tail, and he almost looks flying. So I guess that's where it comes from. But
Hmm.
with superhuman speed, heat vision, flight, basically being invincible, no wonder he whooped Superman's ass in the recent Godzilla
Yeah.
King Kong meets Justice League comic. He whooped Superman's ass. So Godzilla also has a very distinctive roar. Very distinctive roar. Is transcribed in comics as Skrinyok or whatever. It was created by composer Akira. Um, oh, I'm definitely going to pronounce his last name wrong. Akira Ifukube. Fukubi. Fukyo? No, Fuki. Fukubi. Whatever. Who
Oh
produced
man.
the sound by rubbing a pine tar resin coated glove along the string of a contrabass, which is like a giant violin. Or you can even say it's a leather glove, really, and like slowing down the sound. So that's where it came from. And we'll probably repeat that fact later. But how the roar is made today is kept secret. But anywho, um, what do you think, Steve, is the most inconsistent thing about Godzilla?
Probably the way he looks, because like you get in the first movie, you get like the black eyes. You can rarely see like his eye in there, and just the way he looks changes. I get that the second movie he does become there is another Godzilla, but even then to now you can see the different ways they change his body.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like it's his size. His
Yeah.
size. It's the most inconsistent thing about Godzilla. So, like, we know he lives in the ocean, and the deepest part of the ocean. Like, I had to look this up. So, the deepest part of the ocean, according to NOAA, for you ocean lovers and nerds out there, is the Pacific Ocean's Mariana Trench. And at a place in the trench called Challenger Deep, it measures 10,935 meters or 35,876 feet. So the deepest part of the world, 35,876 feet. Okay. So the original Godzilla, and there is more than one Godzilla, so that's so important. And I think that is going to be a big part of the coming Godzilla movie, Godzilla Kong movie. So everybody's like, why is his scales pink? I think that's another Godzilla, but we're going to talk about that in a couple weeks. But because we went from blue scales to pink scales, like either he's powered up or it's a different Godzilla.
See, that's what I was thinking, that maybe he got like an upgrade
Wow.
from going in between the two worlds that Legendary has going on.
Yeah, legendary. Yeah, yeah. But the original Godzilla, and there's more than one Godzilla. As I said, um, it was 50 meters or 164 feet tall. In the American version of the original movie, I thought this was so interesting because this is funny. In the American version of the original movie, Godzilla King of the Monsters, he is labeled as 121.9 meters or 400 feet tall because the producer felt that 50 meters or only 164 feet was not large enough. It wasn't threatening enough. So, so to put this in perspective, the tallest building in the world is the Burj Khalifa, which is in Dubai, and is 829.8 meters tall or 2,722 feet high. The tallest building in America is the One World Trade Center for good reason. One World Trade Center in New York City, it is 546.2 meters or 1,792 feet tall. So is so important, and I hope you agree, Steve. It's so important that when Godzilla attacks the city, that he's taller than these buildings, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Like he's a Godzilla. He has like there's no way he's going to be shorter than some of these buildings. He has to
Right.
tower them. Yeah. I agree with you there.
So is as history goes on and buildings get bigger, Godzilla should get bigger. Like totally agree. Um, Toho eventually would bump his size to 100 meters as like buildings got larger, as I said. And in the 2014 MonsterVerse, Godzilla starts at 108.2 meters or 355 feet, and he weighs 81,650 metric tons. So when America pointed out that movie in 2014, Japan's like, "No, we can't be outdone. We made Godzilla." So in Shin Godzilla, he's measured 118.5 meters or 389 feet tall. So just a little bit bigger. So what kills me is in King of the Monsters, that's his biggest size that he's recorded, 400 meters. But it's the same footage that is in the original Godzilla. So where you're labeling him as like 165 feet. So we don't see him get bigger, but you still want to say he's like that big, like whatever. So the largest he's ever been is in the 1956 movie. And in 1998 movie, I almost forgot, he's measured at 230 feet or 70 meters. So now, everybody, you know more about Godzilla than you've ever known, and I no longer pity you. So I now want to talk about how we were first introduced to Godzilla. So I call this segment "Losing Your Virginity" because I have horrible humor. So Steve, when did you lose your virginity to Godzilla? When's the first time you met Godzilla or introduced to Godzilla?
It was probably back in like I would have to say like 95, staying up late and watching old movies on my TV and came across I think it was maybe TNT or something and they were just unloading these Godzilla films one right after another and I just couldn't take my eyes off of it. So, yeah, it was probably back then.
So like what do you think what is like the first movie you saw, if you can remember?
I'm thinking, looking back and looking at him now, I'm thinking it was the old Godzilla versus King Ghidorah one because I remember instinctively seeing King Ghidorah and the multiple heads and all the flying and all that.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure it was that one.
Okay. Um I think the first Godzilla movie that I saw was Godzilla 85. And my mom's best friend Carol, who I call Aunt Carol, I think she showed me that. I think that was my first introduction to Godzilla. Or it might also have been like the Gazuki movie. I think that was on TV a lot. Like maybe it was Son of Godzilla. It also no, you know what? It might have been Godzilla versus Mothra. That might have been my first movie because I have I have a lot of memories of Mothra as I do Godzilla. So it might have been that. So I think my official answer is Godzilla versus Mothra, but I have so many memories as well of like that huge image of Godzilla in Godzilla 1985. So I think it was probably Godzilla versus Mothra. So um and like Godzilla also helped Jurassic Park. So it inspired Steven Spielberg for Jurassic Park. So I also think I watched more Godzilla movies around when Jurassic Park came out. I think that's like really cemented me as a Godzilla fan, like seeing T Rexes and like want to watch that stuff. Um, but and like Godzilla 1998, I have a lot of memories of that. Like I remember the music video with P Diddy like
Yeah.
standing on some truck in New York and like
Uh-huh.
come with me. And then I think they used the oh, what the hell is that Zeppelin song?
Oh,
Um,
I know what you're
I know
talking
he
about.
ripped off of it. It's oh, what the hell? Cashmere. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So you use like Cashmere as like the tune and like go see my mind, see my thoughts, go come with me. And then Godzilla like coming to him. I remember that.
Didn't he go
But
eye to eye with Godzilla at the end, kinda?
I think
I
so.
remember.
Okay, I'm gonna have to post on Gravely Music that music video on
Yeah,
YouTube. I'm gonna have
that was classic.
yeah, it was still classic. Like it's just so 90s. Um, but there's so much hype for that movie, and then it was just so bad.
Yeah.
But funny. So I have a funny story about Godzilla. So, I think my mom. Yeah, I think my mom found me a like I remember having a King Ghidorah figure. Like it couldn't move, but it had three heads. So I had Ghidorah, and then I had a big Godzilla that could move its arms. And I think it was like from the '85 movie. Um, but I had a Godzilla toy, and I loved that, and I wish I still had it. Oh my god, it was my favorite toy as a kid, and I brought it into my third grade class for show and tell. And after show and tell, I kept playing with it at my desk, and my teacher, Mrs. Malloy, was like, "Brian, you gotta stop playing with your Godzilla toy." And I think I told her to F off.
Jeez.
And then, because I just wanted to play with Godzilla all day.
Yeah.
So I was sent to the principal's office, and my Godzilla toy got confiscated, and I wasn't able to get it back until my mom could come and like pick up the toy. And yeah, I got in trouble. Like I told that teacher to straight to her face, F off. It's Godzilla time. Like that's how committed I am to Godzilla. So so that's how we lost our virginity to Godzilla. So now it's for the main event, the big meat and potatoes of the podcast. So to the main part of the podcast, or I call it the main event. This is where we'll talk about the film, book, TV show, novel, comic book, or character from a moment in horror history. So we're focused on this particular episode on, of course, Godzilla and his history, and more importantly, how he affected horror and sci-fi history and the 1950s. So the focus today is on his first three appearances: 1954's Gojira, 1955's Godzilla Raise Again, and 1956's Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Which you said was basically the first movie, but in American.
Yeah, well, I mean, you watched it, so
Yeah.
they take out so much good stuff.
Yeah.
But these movies, not only were they in the 50s, which is what we're focusing on, but they're so damn vital to horror, sci-fi, pop culture, and they changed films forever. Like these movies are so important to film history and horror history. So let's begin. Godzilla 1954. So directed by Ashiro Honda, also written by Tekio Murata, Ashiro Honda. That's who wrote it. It was produced by Tomoyuki Tanaka, and it stars the following: Tagashi Shimura as Dr. Hayoke Yamane. So Dr. Yamane, we gotta remember that name, Steve. Yamane. That's like our main character. That's the dude. And also Akihiko Hirata plays Dr. Daisuke Daisuke Serizawa. Serizawa is a name that you're probably gonna remember in Godzilla lore. So drill that into your head if you've never seen this movie, guys. Serizawa, very important. And Akira Takarada as Hideo Ogata, which is the boyfriend of Amiko, and Momoko Kochi as Amiko Himane. And made by Toho. It was released on October 27th, 1954 in Nagoya, Japan. And it was released countrywide on November 3rd, 1954 in Japan. The running time is 96 minutes, so it's a pretty tight hour and a half. So really you could probably do these movies back to back in 3 hours, and you wouldn't take up too much of your night. So the budget for this movie, I converted from yen to US dollars. So the budget of the movie was $666,382 in 1950s. That's a crap load of money in the 1950s. So I did not adjust for inflation, but that's how much it was in the 50s. So how they made. So that's a lot of money. But the box office, I didn't adjust for inflation, made 2.25 million. So this movie made like a good bit of profit. So this is how this movie came about. In 1954, Toho was originally going to make a movie with Indonesia as like as Japanese Indonesian like co-production. But Indonesia was very anti-Japanese because the movie they wanted to make this about was actually about Japan like making sentiments there, like Japan taking over part of Indonesia. They wanted to make a movie about it. So Indonesia was basically like F you, like we hate that you did this, so why would we want to make a movie about it? So they denied visas for filmmakers. They said no. So the producer that was going to make that movie, his name was Jakarta. He flies back to Japan, um, or he flies. Yeah, I'm so sorry. He flies to renegotiate with Indonesia to try to like make this movie, and I think it was called In the Shadow of Glory. And it was gonna it's like I said, it was gonna be about this Japanese soldier who was stationed in the Dutch East Indies during this Japanese occupation of Indonesia, and it was like going to be about that. And Indonesia didn't want it, so they said screw it. So these negotiations were totally unsuccessful. So on the flight back to Japan, the producer got this idea for a giant monster film, and he started thinking like he's going to do a movie about a giant octopus. But he also was thinking about his inspiration from Beasts of 20,000 Fathoms, and he started thinking about like recent events in Japan. The recent event was I'll definitely butcher this name, the Daigo Fukui incident, Daigo Fukui Maru incident. Anyway, it was an incident that happened in March 1954. And basically, what happened was this tuna fishing boat in Japan with a crew of like 23, they got contaminated by nuclear fallout from United States like thermonuclear tests in Japan on this Bikini Bottom or Bikini Atoll, and on March 1st. So like the U.S. did another nuclear test in Japan, and these people on the boat died and got contaminated. So the crew suffered from radiation syndrome for weeks after that test, and they did recover from the side effects eventually, except for their radio man who ended up dying in September, like 6 months later, from radiation sickness. So, like with the bombings of Hiroshima and Okinawa, I'm so sorry, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, yeah, with radiation poisoning. It was like fresh in the mind of Japanese people about nuclear war and radiation and what that could do. So he thought that that was like a real dang good story. So he took the idea of the beast from 20,000 fathoms and this nuclear radiation idea. And also, King Kong was getting popular again because they re-released it. We talked about King Kong next episode. So they're like, we can make money from this. So the project was approved in mid April 1954, and Toho originally intended for, I'm going to butcher this name, Kichi Taniguchi, might be what it was, to direct the film as he was attached to Shadow of Glory, that Indonesian movie they were going to make. But he declined to do it. So Honda was not Toho's first choice to direct Godzilla, but he had wartime experience, and that made him a pretty good candidate for anti-nuclear theme film. Because, like I said before, science fiction was a new thing. So, like 20s and 40s was all about literary characters and classic monsters, but this was that was like all pre-World War II. So, Steve, I don't know if you watched a lot of like old classic monster movies.
No, not really.
Not really. Like not a lot of people have. Like my stepdad Tony is like really obsessed by him, and like Carol showed me a lot of them. Carol's responsible for a lot of my personality. God rest her soul. Um, but if you watch any of those old movies, you can see like they're focused on literary characters. Like it came out like during Depression times. If you listen to season one of Gravely Amusing, like the mindset was totally different. Like we're trying to make money during the Depression, but like it was very kind of like educational almost, like pulling things from book stuff. Like it's weird to explain. But once World War II hit, everything changed. So I personally don't think that King Kong was successful in the 30s because it was so ahead of its time. Like it was a whole different genre that they were hitting. So re-releasing it post World War II made it more. And when Skull Island comes out, they focus on Vietnam, which made Skull Island more better King Kong movie. So if we focus on these post-war stuff and the effects of it, like with Vietnam going in the jungle and with nuclear radiation, World War II, it works better for these monsters. So it was a whole different world with sci-fi and all this stuff. So um yeah, so Honda took this job, but he wanted the movie to depict a monster attack as if it was a real event. And he wanted to take a serious tone with it of like a documentary. So that's how he wrote this movie to be different than a regular monster movie like King Kong or whatever. Because science fiction movies were so different, like they were so buggy and monsters. But this movie focuses on how it affected the people of Japan and how they felt about being attacked again after they faced this nuclear attack 10 years prior. Because like Steve, everybody that worked in this movie was alive during that bombing. So
Yeah.
I think that would you agree that like that's why this movie was so impactful? Because
Yeah.
because
It had
everybody
a
lived through that.
connection. Yeah. It had connections with all that.
Absolutely, yeah, totally. Like that's what made this movie so successful is how like and them showing like nuclear radiation and the folly of man. Um, so Steve, how did the writing come along and like how did they design Godzilla?
Well, the writer, Tsuba Barawa, had the idea about a.
You can butcher it; it's fine.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be good with these names. Had the idea about a giant octopus attacking ships in the Indian Ocean. It was rejected, which, to be honest, I think was probably the right idea. So in May of '54, they hired a sci-fi writer by the name of Shiniru Katana to write this story. It was only 50 pages long, which is good because I could barely write anything that quick, which he wrote in 11 days. The script, the paleontologist wore shades and a cape, and he was living in a European style house that only came out when the sun went down. Um, the idea of Godzilla was going to be this more animal type monster that would come in from the ocean and eat the wildlife um, that he wanted to eat. He also took interest in females, kind of like King Kong did with the one woman that he brought to the top of I believe, the Empire State Building. But it just didn't work. It didn't feature a scene taken right out of inspiration, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, which I have not seen, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah,
With
we will see it though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
with
like if they
Godzilla
would have made a
attacking a
cookie
lighthouse.
cutter of King Kong, it wouldn't have worked.
No, not at all. So, and that wasn't just going to work. The writers eventually met and they decided they wrote the screenplay as we know it today in 3 weeks, which is pretty quick, I think, and put in the different characters like Amiko and the love triangle and add more of these nuclear type themes. And it just made it more relatable and better, I think. As we said earlier, Godzilla is Japanese for Gojira, which means gorilla and whale fused together, which, like Brian said earlier, would definitely make a good villain someday for Godzilla.
Oh, dude, but like I don't want it like a Sharknado type Guardian. Like
No.
I want to see. I don't even know how you would pull it off. Like
You could go with the whole radiation and they were at the same area. I don't
I
know.
don't know,
It
it,
would be creative.
but like yeah, it would be badass. Anyway, go ahead.
All right, where was I? Do some type of gorilla and whale creature, but they eventually settled on making him like a dinosaur, like a T-Rex, which we know he's like today. This movie was originally going to be a stop motion animation for Godzilla, which I did not know, but they decided instead on suitimation, where you basically put a guy in a suit and they would put him on these like model city sets and just have him go to town walking through it, destroying stuff, which was very revolutionary at the time for sci-fi.
That's the part of the
Um,
job that I would like. I would like that job, like just
oh
wrecking shit,
yeah.
but like just wrecking stuff, but not wearing that suit.
See, I wouldn't mind. I think it'd be fun wearing that suit and acting like a dinosaur, trampling stuff. I think that'd be hilarious and fun. Um, I mean, the suit, it was made of thin bamboo sticks and wire for the frame, which was probably heavy, and had metal mesh and cushioning all over it to keep it the way it looked. And then applied a bunch of coats of latex and molten rubber, latex paints and molten rubber were added, followed by more latex to create the scaly Godzilla hide. The first version of the suit weighed 220 pounds, and the guy controlling it probably lost like 100 pounds in that suit from sweating to death.
Thinking like you lost like 20 or 30, whatever.
I was gonna say, just hearing all that stuff, maybe I
Like,
don't want to be in
do you
that
want
suit.
to like put on a dino suit, start wrecking stuff if it weighs 220 pounds?
Nah, it would have to be made better.
Yeah,
And maybe a couple fans in there and stuff, then I'd have a hell of a time.
this was 70 years ago, so like
Yeah, you ain't getting that good stuff.
no.
They would use for close-ups of Godzilla, they would create a smaller scale and had a mechanical hand operate a puppet that would spray mist from his mouth for Godzilla's atomic breath, which I said kind of looks like Superman's freeze breath. Um, Actors were chosen to be in the Godzilla suit because of course, had to for being it weighed 220 pounds. They had to be strong and be able to last. And the actors that were eventually chosen were Nakajima and Tezuka. Um, when Nakajima first wore it, he fell over, which I mean, 220 pounds, that's going to take down somebody that's not used to wearing something like that. So they end
Sure.
up deciding to actually cut the suit into two pieces and use it for scenes requiring only partial shots of Godzilla or close ups. And the lower half, he would just wear with suspenders made of rope or something when they focused on him walking more in his feet. But when they needed a full body shot of Godzilla, they created another suit, which obviously had to be lighter than the first suit so they could wear it for more than 3 minutes before eventually passing out. Um, And like Brian said earlier, one of the actors actually lost 20 pounds during the filming of the movie, probably from sweating and just being in that hot suit for a while. It took about 30 to 40 workers in the carpentry department to build those little model cities that eventually Godzilla would destroy. And for the atomic breath scenes, explosives were installed in some of the miniatures that were going to be destroyed by the breath, so they would trigger and blow it up as the breath was going.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That's why like some scenes probably have more fire than others.
Yeah,
that,
due
that
to the
makes sense.
explosions. Um, somewhere sprayed with gasoline. Oh, some were sprayed with gasoline to make them burn easily, which, yeah, that would help greatly. Others included little cracks so they could crumble easier, whatever they could do to make it look as broken down as possible, which makes sense because I know I used to help my friend with derby cars, and we would dent certain areas so when he would get hit, it would bend up and it would show better. So
Oh, cool.
that makes sense.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was
I didn't know
very
you did that.
fun doing that type of stuff. um, heck, the movie was filmed in just 51 days compared to now where what takes a year almost or months on
Like months
months.
or so. Yeah.
So that's really quick.
Yeah, they weren't playing. They wanted that money.
Oh yeah, definitely. Um, and a very important iconic thing to Godzilla is his roar, which we talked about. It's iconic because and which makes this interesting because reptiles don't have vocal cords and they don't have the ability to roar or screech. So I'm assuming his roar was probably based on the Tyrannosaurus Rex more than it would have been for the amphibian part of him.
Well, like
Um,
it's probably the gorilla part of him, or the whale part, you know,
yeah, yeah, that's
you know.
true. Yeah, it could be. Oh my god, that's funny. But they wanted him to sound scary, so they just added that in there because he was a monster and it's Godzilla for God's sakes. You have to make him have a roar that's gonna scare. So they actually went to a zoo in Japan and recorded various animals, but it just didn't work right. I mean, unless you'd have to get a Tyrannosaurus Rex, which weren't around, of course. So, as Brian said earlier, Godzilla's War was actually created by a big violin, like a contrabass, and they loosened the strings and rubbed them with a leather glove. And the sound is when they slow down the speed to make that sound happen.
So actually, Steve, that actually is not true.
Okay.
I know we said it twice already, but actually, I looked it up, and the Godzilla roar is actually my sister whining. Um, so, you know, I don't know where the money went, you know, but that's where it came from. So,
I could
just
hear
want to make
that.
sure that was out there.
um, with the marketing and the release of the film, to generate interest in this movie, they actually did a radio play called Monster Godzilla that ran for
Really?
about it ran for about 11 episodes and were aired on Saturdays from July 17th to September 25th.
We got to try to find that. I wonder if it's on YouTube.
Yeah, we'd have
I
to
never
try.
knew
I'd
that
be
existed.
interested to see what they sounded like and everything.
Huh.
Compared to what they do now, they just put out a trailer, or they put a teaser, and then they line up 8 trailers for the
Right.
one film.
This movie only had one trailer.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I believe so. An attempt to build mystery for the movie, they didn't let anybody, reporters on set. They wanted to keep it hush hush as much as they could. We didn't actually learn until the 60s that Godzilla was portrayed by a man in a suit. Seeing it now, it's very clear that it's a man in a suit. But back in that day, it was new. So, we just probably speculated it. And to publicize, they had to cut out pictures and posters and display them in theaters and store like what we see now. And those things are a pain in the butt to build. Because I worked in a movie theater for like a year. And oh my God, it's like a puzzle to build those
Oh,
things
really?
now. Yeah. And now you got some that like move and stuff and light up. I used to hate building those things. So
It was dope.
it was cool to see them, but
Once it's built and the work's over.
yeah, but the work, oh my God. I don't know how many times I wanted to take one and just crack it over my knee. But they had
Use your judo.
advertisement, huh?
Use your judo.
Yeah,
Your Godzilla
like
judo.
Godzilla.
Yeah.
They had advertisement balloons, and they even had a Godzilla doll mounted on a truck that they drove around Tokyo with. That's pretty cool.
Oh, that's dope.
The movie trailer was released on October 20th, 1954, and the film was originally released on the 27th of the same month in 54. And
That's insane. Okay, that's insane. You release a trailer and then the movie comes out just a week later.
yeah, I wish
Like,
that was the way it was
dang.
now, but
Wow.
they
7
released the
years ago.
trailer months away from it just
Absolutely.
to get
Unless you're
that
Madam
going.
Web, and then you just release one trailer, and then like,
Yeah,
boom, here's your movie.
I don't even want to talk about that movie. I didn't even watch the movie, and I'm glad I didn't.
You will though. You will when it's like on
When
streaming here.
it's free and on the TV and I'm at work, I'll
Absolutely.
probably put it on. Um, let me see here. It released in Nagoya, Japan, and will be released nationwide in Japan on November 3rd, 1954, which I think you mentioned above. This film set a record for studios by selling 33,000 tickets and selling out the theater in the first day. But the film will not be shown in American theater until April 18th,
2014.
2014. Really?
Oh yeah. Oh
Oh,
yeah, buddy.
jeez.
Yeah.
Dang, I didn't know that was that recent they did
Yeah, when
that.
we put these notes together, you must have missed that. But like, yeah. Like so nobody saw Gojira until 2004. Like well, I'm sorry. Nobody could get a copy in America of Gojira unless it was bootleg until 2004. And it wasn't until American theaters released that movie alongside the new one in 2014. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. That's cool. I didn't know that. So, well, like you said, 60 years after it was released. Um, so how can you watch this film? Well, in 1985, Gojira was released on Laserdisc. In 1988, it was released on VHS, and then so on and so on. 2001 DVD, 2009, it was eventually released on Blu-ray. And in March 2021, they released the 4K remaster, which
I wonder how many of our listeners don't know what a laser disc is and VHS. They might not even know what
honestly,
a DVD is anymore.
honestly, I don't even know. I don't think I even know what a laser disc is.
Yeah,
I'm right around the
you've never
VHS
seen a
era.
laser disc?
I may have,
You're
and I
older than
just don't
me.
remember. I'm not that much older, but
Okay, a laser disc was like
that was right when I was born.
I know, but like I know I'm more of a historian, I know. But Laserdisc was like a damn like record.
Oh, really?
And like so yeah, the tray opened like it was like a giant DVD, dude.
Oh,
Like it was
crap.
huge.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yep. Yep.
Hmm.
Yep. And they thought to do so like they thought it was gonna work. So like they had laid discs. They thought it was going to really take off, but it was like pretty expensive. And then
Mhm.
like they thought Betamax was going to take over. Betamax was like a smaller VHS, but then they came out with VHS and like VHS took over. So it's kind of like the same concept of like an early 2000s when they released HD DVDs
Yeah.
and Blu-rays.
Mm-hmm.
Blu-rays took over because of one specific thing. So what do you think is like the main thing of how video technology like grows? Like what's the main thing that like this is the technology we're going to use?
I have no
The
idea.
factor, my friend, and my cousin, my blood, is porn. Yep. Yeah. Look it up. So HD DVD did not succeed, and Betamax and stuff didn't succeed because it was easier to get to produce porn on Blu-rays, VHS. It was
This
easier
is
to
where
report it on.
this is where we would key the graphic. The more you
The
know.
more you know. So there you go. There you go.
All right. Where did I leave off at? Okay. The movie was also been released in 2019 as a part of the Criterion collection and a giant book Blu-ray sets that Brian proudly has.
Yes. So yes. So it wasn't cheap, but you know, I don't have kids. So this is like 15. It's this art book of like Godzilla arc and like the art and like this history of the movies, and it's like this giant book of the art, and it has like 15 Blu-rays in it of all the first 15 movies, and it is gorgeous.
Man, that sounds good. I mean, I didn't even know they had stuff like that.
Yes, sir. I'll send you a link. You'll have
Yeah,
your
you'll
sugar
have
bubble
to
buy it for you.
show me it. Most Godzillas now are including this one are on the Max app. So if you want to check it out, which that's how I've been watching them, it's on Max. Initially the film actually didn't do well, and some Japanese critics felt it exploited the atomic bomb and the people that went through all that and the pain they suffered. It wasn't until 1956 when Godzilla King of the Monsters came out, an American audience saw it and loved the version of the film that the Japanese version became so popular, and they hightailed it to make a sequel in 1955, which those movies we'll talk about in a little bit. So, Brian, let's talk about this movie.
All right, my man. Okay. So for our listeners that for some reason do not want to watch this first Godzilla movie, first of all, you're insane. And I won't apologize for calling you insane. This movie is cinema, it is great. I think personally, I feel like black and white movies have such a wonderful art to them. And I don't know, I'm an oldie, but you know, I mean, that's so like I want to watch -1 in black and white. Like I just want to see what it will be like. But even though this movie is black and white, it is cinema history. So try to watch it. But here's what happens in the movie, okay? So the movie starts out with a Japanese freighter named the Ikwamaru being destroyed near Oda Island outside Japan. And this other ship, the Bingomaro or whatever, this other ship, that's all that matters, is sent to investigate like what happened, but they meet the same fate as the survivors. And then there's like a fishing boat that is also destroyed and it only has one survivor. So all these boats, like everybody's dying, and nobody can catch fish. Japan, if you do not know, is like synonymous with fish and sushi. So like that's how they make their living. So if these people aren't able to fish, if people are dying, if fish are dying, this is a huge deal. So nobody can catch fish. And this elder of the village, this older man, basically says that this is because of Godzilla. And that's the first time that we hear Godzilla name in movies and screens. So, and he says that in olden days, we would actually sacrifice a virgin to Godzilla. Like we would put her on a boat and drift her in the sea, and like that's how Godzilla went and attacked us. And now in 1954, they stopped doing that. They decided that might not be something to do. So because Godzilla didn't get his virgins, that's why Godzilla's attacking you. And there's your movie. No, I'm just, no, I'm just
Hey, we all need something.
hey man. Hey man. Man has needs. Man has needs.
Mhm.
so 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 reporters start arriving on this island, and they investigate, and they see like all these fishes are dying and stuff. And we see like this little tiny peak of Godzilla over a hill. Like he's like that creepy neighbor that's just like, just like peeking over the fence. Like you see him just a little bit. Um and yeah. So he kills several people in this attack, but it's like a tease attack, which I appreciated. Like we just get this little tease. So um so like all these villagers then travel to Tokyo. They demand disaster relief, and the villagers and reporters like give evidence and saying like, "Hey, this thing is crushing our village." The government hires paleontologists, and the paleontologist is like the main character. His name is Dr. Yaname. I hope I remember that right. And he leads this investigation on the island, and they find Godzilla's footprints, and it has radiation in it, and it's poisoned the well, and like they have no water. And then they find this like trilobite, which is like this ancient prehistoric bug in the footprint. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, like this is prehistoric time. Like this is a dinosaur. Oh my god, Godzilla!" And uh, and then they sound the alarm for like a village is being attacked, and we see Godzilla for the first time in like full form. And for the time, he has this huge overbite. Like it's a dude in the suit, but like it's so iconic. Like he looks cool. It's fun. This movie as depressing part of this movie is like just the cinema of it. Like there's some fun parts in it.
Yeah,
Um,
I like how they did his eyes in this one. Like they're just
yeah,
dark and like
dark
coming at you, and then they went to like his eyes wide open, and I'm like, ugh. But yeah.
cinema,
Mhm.
Steve.
Yep.
Like
Little
it's
details
so
like
good.
that.
It was so good. Um, So Dr. Yaname presents his findings and like throws the bug to people, and says that Godzilla is about 50 meters tall and he had to evolve this way. Like there has to be a reason he's so big. So he concludes that basically Godzilla has grown this way because of hydrogen bomb testing, nuclear war, nuclear testing, and he's been feeding off all this nuclear testing and energy, and that's why he's become that big. So he's pushing that Godzilla is just an innocent creature. Like he didn't ask to be this big, he didn't ask to exist, but he exists because humans have done these horrible things and made him exist. Like I can't stress this enough. Like they made him this way. So this is a result of humans doing horrible things. That's why Godzilla exists. So he's attacking ships because he wants, he wants his bitches, he wants his women, and and he wants his virgins. So um so meanwhile, Yanami has a daughter named Emiko, and she's kind of like a main character in this. Uh, whatever. You have to have like some human contact, and basically, like, she is in a love triangle, and she was arranged to marry this Doctor Serizawa, who has an eye patch for some reason. Like, I don't even remember how he got it, but it makes him look badass. So he she doesn't want to marry Serizawa. She likes this other more handsome guy. So she goes to tell Serizawa that she's not going to marry him. And when she does, he's basically like, okay, whatever. I'll find another chick. And he shows her, and they don't show this scene completely because it's supposed to be a secret. Um, but he shows her that he built this thing called an oxygen destroyer because he's a scientist, and it's a convenient part of the plot. So that's why. So the government wants to hide what's going on with Godzilla. They want to not have panic. And in the Japanese version of this movie, there's this lady in the audience that's like, no, you're not going to lie. You're not going to hide the truth. People need to know what's going on, and you need to do something about it because this lizard exists because of what you have done. And it's like a really dramatic scene. And she keeps interrupting and like shouting. And like they take her out of the meeting because she's causing such a ruckus. In the American version, they edit that all out. Like, so in the King of the Monsters version, they edit that all out. Like, you don't see her flip out. Like, you just kind of like see like reporters go and like focus on a woman and stuff, but you don't see her, like, you don't see that big interaction, that like really dramatic part, which is tragedy.
Yeah, I think that this what they did with that one ruins, like, it should never been made. Like, just leave it alone.
No, it had to be made, but
Yeah.
we'll get to it. But it's important. But it should have they should have just like paid for the rights to have the Japanese movie just come to America. Like, but
Yeah,
I
I
understand it.
agree.
I understand it though. So anywho, the people of Tokyo, they're like, he's not going to make it to Tokyo, and if he does, we have this electrified fence. It'll stop him. So Godzilla eventually comes to Tokyo. He goes right through this fence. He uses his atomic breath, kills a whole bunch of people. People are dead or they have radiation sickness. And we see like scenes of like guys trying to escape in a subway and like the subway collapsing on them and them getting flooded. Like, it's crazy. But the most powerful scene, and I want your opinion on this scene, Steve. The most powerful scene in this whole movie for me is when they go to this mother that's like huddled with her two kids, like as stuff's getting destroyed, and she's like standing, so she's like sitting in a doorway, like holding her kids, and she says that it's okay, kids, like, we're gonna go meet daddy, we're gonna go where daddy went because daddy died already, it's gonna be okay. And like, holy crap, like, that sells the movie for me. Like, that is a powerful scene that, like, there's nothing we can do, we're going to die, but I need to comfort my children to know it's going to be okay, and we're going to go where daddy is, and we're going to still be a family and go be together. Like, what do you think of that scene, man?
Man, yeah, it's very, like, powerful, like you said, and very tragic, but I feel like it's important to show because you have a giant monster crushing and killing people. You don't wanna just concentrate, you wanna show, and I think that's what makes the stories so good. From there, you see what happens to the people and how they're thinking in these type manners and all that, and I agree with you, it's very powerful.
Like, it just, it's so powerful. Um, yes, absolutely. So this movie ends with Emiko basically telling everybody the secret of Serizawa's oxygen destroyer, because they're like, how are we going to kill Godzilla? And what this oxygen destroyer does is it disintegrates oxygen atoms in the water and basically causes like asphyxiation and suffocation to whatever's in the water. So I want you to throw your rationale out the window. Like, how are you going to use this in the ocean? The ocean is so big. Like, is it going to destroy all the oxygen in the whole ocean? Like, how powerful is it? It's basically like, just put in your head, it can only kill something in a certain vicinity. Like, there's a range that it can handle. Like, and it's just this in this immediate area. Okay, it can't suck the oxygen out of the whole ocean. But Sarazawa, like, he doesn't want to use this. He regrets that he created it because it kills fish, like it kills things, and he created because he's a scientist. Like he's curious. So he doesn't want to use this. So but they talk him into it because like how are you going to kill, like people are going to die, like we have to get rid of Godzilla. So he burns the notes because he doesn't want anybody to be able to create this again. Um he doesn't want any more destruction. He doesn't want any more nuclear things going on. And he only has the notes and like how to make it in his head now. So at the end of the movie, he dives with Emiko's new boyfriend, and Serizawa is like not mad about it. He just accepts it, and they dive down to where Godzilla is, and he's kind of sleeping, and they activate the oxygen destroyer, and the boyfriend goes up, the handsomer boyfriend without the eye patch, and Serizawa cuts his rope. But before he does that, he radios up and says, Emiko, have a good life. I hope you have happiness. And kills himself, sacrifices himself so that nobody can get the oxygen destroyer notes out of his brain or like torture him in the future to get it. And kills Godzilla, and Godzilla deteriorates to just a bunch of bones. And Emiko, goes and lives her life. Pretty powerful ending, man.
Yeah.
This movie was originally intended to be like we want to make this movie so that nuclear stuff ends. So what do you think about this movie, Steve? Like, does it hold up? What'd you like about it? What'd you hate about it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the movie. Like, it reminds me a lot of Godzilla -1. Um, I think it's a good movie. Like, it has everything you would want. It has the tragic with showing the people that are suffering from this, and the one guy that created the oxygen. I don't even remember what that thing's oxygen. The thing that kills Godzilla. It just has everything. I have to say that the one thing I didn't like, um, I don't know, it was just the way Godzilla looked, I guess. I liked the way his eyes were, he was scary and
Sure.
stuff. It's just, I mean, for the
Like the
time,
overbite.
yeah, it kind of got to me.
Yeah.
But other than that, and it does hold up. I mean, -1 is basically that film, just changed up a little bit, and so yeah, I think it holds up.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think this movie is just a damn masterpiece. Like, well, I do think that -1 is better. I think -1 has a better human story.
Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but this movie is so good. So
Mhm.
so I'm gonna jump 2 years to the American version. Um, and just touch on that a little bit. And here we go. So Godzilla King of the Monsters. This movie is so very important because it's not a better movie, not not at all. But it's so important because without this movie, Godzilla wouldn't have survived. It wouldn't have made it. Like it would have just been a one and done. So in 1955, Edmund Goldman approached Toho and said, "Hey, give me 25K, or I'll give you 25K, and you let me make this film Americanized." Toho accepted that deal immediately and said, basically, you'll have to do English dubbing, you'll have to edit in ways, and we have to approve what you're going to change it to, so that you can have that licensing, and it's not a carbon copy of what we have, whatever. I don't understand why they didn't just like pay 25,000 to have it be in US theaters, and like,
That would
and
make more
and
sense.
Goldman took money off of it. I don't know, but that's the way it should have been. So um it's almost the same movie as the original, but there are many differences, and the differences hurt it. They really hurt it. So the scene of the mother holding her children, yeah, that's taken away. The part of the lady flipping out and saying like, "Hey, we need to tell people the truth," in the courtroom, they cut that out. Um, and they insert this character played by Raymond Burr, who at the time was very popular for playing Ironside on TV. Like he's a pretty famous actor at the time. They have him play a reporter named Steve Martin. Not the Steve Martin we know, the character named Steve Martin. This guy's not funny at all. And they like kind of like add him in the movie to be at key parts in the movie, like he was there the whole time. And they have him stand with like stand-in actors when they couldn't get the real actors. Like it's just stupid. Um, like what makes this movie worse though is that if you saw Gojira before you saw this movie, it makes the movie worse. So I kind of recommend that you actually watch Gojira, the original OG movie, and then watch this because because you'll see you'll appreciate Gojira more. But it is what it is. So this movie is so important though because if it wasn't for this movie being made, American audiences probably wouldn't have saw Gojira till like so long because it wasn't available in the US on DVD or like to have till 2004, which is 50 years after it was made. So like it wouldn't like Godzilla wouldn't be successful. Like Godzilla has the Guinness World Record for the longest movie franchise at 70 years this year. So this is the 70th anniversary of Godzilla this year. Like it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for this movie being made. Some even say it's the most important foreign film of all time. So it's that important because this introduced Godzilla to the U.S. And I think like my favorite thing about this movie is the opening title, like where it flashes Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Like that's really cool.
Yeah.
So I say like you watch Godzilla, King of the Monsters, this one, the 1956 version. The 2019 is a whole different movie, but we're talking the 56 version. Watch it after you watch Gojira. Like seriously. So Steve, what are your thoughts on this movie? Like, did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was better than the original?
Me personally, other than it brought Godzilla to us, uh, I don't think the movie's really needed. I think you're right. They should have just bought the Japanese one and brought it over. And I hate dubbed. I
Yes.
hate it with a passion.
I think like
So
I think the agreement was dubbing because like American audiences at that time, like they want to hear English words. They don't want to read these subtitles and stuff.
yeah, which
But like
to,
but like we're well, which is interesting because we're like 30 years removed from silent films where they had to read subtitles anyway. So like
yeah.
but like this was like a new sci-fi audience, so that's why. I don't know. I would have
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but like they should have just bought the Japanese version. Like they did not need this version.
no. I think like you gotta watch Gojira and then Godzilla Raids Again. You gotta watch them back to back.
Yeah.
So Steve, uh break down, break down Raids Again, man. What happens? Sum it up.
Well, Godzilla Raids Again was in 1955. It was directed by Motoyoshi Oda. The special effects by Eiji Tsubura. There was a lot of people on this film. It was about 81 minutes long. It came out April 24th, 1955 in Japan. It was Japanese language. The budget was 213,242 again
So
back then.
cheaper than the original.
Yeah. And
Interesting.
I mean, you could kind of tell,
Yeah. Oh yeah. For real.
which I'll get into later, but
Yeah.
and then made about a little over $1 million. Um, so yeah, the film was actually it was the sequel, and they were flying around these islands towards a school, and another pilot faced engine troubles and had to make a emergency landing on one of the islands. I think the island was called Awadu Island. So another plane was sent to rescue this, but when it landed to go get the guy, they had seen that Godzilla was there, a new Godzilla, because they knew they killed the first one from the first
With
movie
the
with
oxygen
the
destroyer,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
So they saw him, but then they also saw that he was battling a new monster that was on all fours. So the pilots escape as the monsters are tumbling in the sea. Later, the new monster is identified as an Ankylosaurus, which they conveniently name Angurius, I believe is the
I
pronunciation
don't
of
know
it.
how to pronounce it right.
That's how I'm gonna pronounce it, Angurius.
Yes. There you go.
And shows footage. They start watching footage of the first time Godzilla attacks, and figured out that that one died. This is a new one, and they suggest using flares, blacking out cities to retract Godzilla from coming because they figured he's sensitive to light. So they put these
I thought
countermeasures
that was very
in.
interesting. Like that man, that weakness, like that
Yeah,
he's sensitive
taking
to light. You can like disrupt him by light. I thought that was interesting.
yeah, which kind of is like Jurassic
Worked.
Park from Tyrannosaurus Rex. They use the flare.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Malcolm
Yeah,
used
you're
the
right. You're right.
flare to distract them. So it was
Yeah,
kind of like a T-Rex type thing.
you're right. You're totally right.
So Godzilla comes up to the city. They put all the countermeasures. They fire the flares, and Godzilla gets distracted. Meanwhile, there's chaos going on. Prisoners escape the jail people and start running away. They later, I believe, weren't there three that died in the subway, right? Was that the second one, or am I mixing that up with the first one?
That might have been the first one, but like,
Okay.
so like they like Godzilla's going away, like because of the flares, but these prisoners, like
Escape.
they wreck into this thing caused an explosion, right?
Yes, which later draws Godzilla's attention back to them, but also attracts the ang oh my god, I already
What's it
forgot
called?
how to pronounce it.
Spikadillo. It's an
Angurius.
armadillo
That's
with
it.
spikes.
Angurius. So, um, sorry, I
So like
lost
they
my
start
train of
fighting.
thought. Yeah, they start fighting, and they're having the biggest street fight ever. Godzilla's laying the smackdown on Angurius. And in the movie, it seems like they just when they made these scenes, they put it in like double fast forward because they are moving
Yes.
crazy. And you could definitely tell that both are men in suits fighting each other. It's
Yeah.
almost comical in my eyes watching it in that double way it looks double fast forward and seeing like two monsters fight like two men in costumes.
I timed it, and this fight was like 7 minutes.
Yeah, they
Like
fought
without the fast forward, it
everywhere.
probably would have been 14.
Yeah. So eventually Godzilla lays the smackdown, bites right into that neck, right into the jugular.
It was so badass, Steve. It really
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. And then
Like
as
blood's gushing like all over the place. Like he
oh, he
bites his
actually bit
freaking
him
jugular.
twice.
What's
He
that?
bit him once or like a little bit before, and then he came back in bit him and pushed him into that building.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think that was the final blow. And then as he was laying there dying, Finish Him came across, and Godzilla laid the atomic breath on him and lit him on fire and toasted him.
I was waiting for Godzilla to just pee on him too. like, like, like it was so badass. Like it just like
Like
set
he
him on
just
fire,
whooped
bite his
him.
jugular. And
Yeah.
like in this movie, they pitch that like this new monster like has brains all over its body or something.
Oh yeah, that's right. He has brains and that make him faster because the brain's literally his whole body. And the brains near the legs makes him faster, makes him more dangerous and deadly. And yeah, I mean, he just crushed him. So eventually Godzilla finishes him and starts going. So the I believe they're called the Japan Self-Defense Forces, the
Yeah,
JSDF,
yeah,
come with the idea he's on this island. I guess they find him on an island with like snow and ice and stuff, and they drop bombs that set a fire to block him from moving, and they just light up the mountaintops and just bury him under an avalanche of
well, they got the idea because like one of the main guys in the film, like I just gotta say, like the human story in this is it's not as good, but
no,
it's
not
mostly
at
about these
all.
two pilots. But one of the pilots like shoots a missile, and then it's kind of weird, like almost like he goes kamikaze, and he hits the
Yeah, it
wall of the
crashes
ice,
into the mountain
and
and
then
it
they get the
drops.
idea to do an avalanche and bury him, right?
Yeah, that's where the rest of the Japan S the SDF come along and just hit the mountaintops with missiles, just basically bury them alive like Captain America in ice. So,
Wow.
and
First
yeah,
death, probably better. So
yeah, so
that's
yeah,
Godzilla Raids Again, huh?
yep,
Okay. All right. So like this sequel was never meant to happen. And like even though we are not big fans of King of the Monsters, American version, it would not have happened without that movie.
no, not at
Well,
all.
I'm so sorry. Um No, sorry. King of the Monsters happened after this movie. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry. The success of Gojira was never supposed to happen because, like, it was meant to be that one and done to talk about like nuclear testing's bad. Like it was supposed that was the message, but
hmm,
money talks and BS walks. So,
yeah,
so Honda, the original director, wasn't available to direct that sequel. So he was on like another project and Toho wasn't willing to wait. Like we got to strike when money's hot. Like you know how it is. If people are loving it, you got to get on it.
yep,
So they hired this B-level director with no artistic indulgence whatsoever. Like and you can tell in this movie like it's like a whole different movie. It's a whole
yeah,
different thing. But Steve dude and our listeners, this movie is historically significant because you would not have the modern kaiju film as it is today if not for this film. This changed the blueprint for Godzilla forever and monster movies and stuff. This is the first film that Godzilla faces off against another monster. Um, and the monster was quick, and that's probably what the fast forwarding was for. But like,
yeah,
I, I would have liked a bit like I would have liked more than one fight in the movie. I would have liked them to spread it out
yeah,
because we just get them beating the crap out of each other, taking down some like historical Chinese castle or whatever, and then Godzilla's just like, you know what, I'm done with this crap. Bites him in the jugular, blood's everywhere. It's pretty awesome, and then just sets him on fire.
Well, technically, they had 2 fights. Remember the 2
Oh
pilots
yeah, okay. I'm
discovered
so
them
sorry.
fighting on the
Yeah,
island.
my
But,
apologies.
yeah, I agree. They should have fought a little bit more
Yeah,
before
so
just him
it,
whooping
it
his
should have been a little
ass,
bit more.
and
It should have been.
that's it.
But so what death do you think was better? Like, okay, so going with Godzilla's death in the first movie, and Angoras, whatever, get his jugular ripped off, or the avalanche. Which one's the best death?
I mean, I like the bite and the jugular and pushing like this, the whole badassery of that
Hands down.
death.
Absolutely.
I would say that would be my first choice.
But what's the best Godzilla death then?
Mm.
The oxygen destroyer or the avalanche?
I would say the oxygen destroyer because, to be fair, he's in ice. Couldn't he have used the atomic breath to melt the
Yeah.
ice? So yeah, I would have to say the oxygen
Well,
was the
in a few
best
weeks
death.
we'll talk about the third movie, which is King Kong vs. Godzilla.
Mm,
Yes, the
that
original
one's gonna be fun.
King Kong vs. Godzilla.
That one's gonna be fun.
Yeah. So Steve, like, what out of all these three films, which one was the best?
First one. I don't
Absolutely,
even
hands
have to
down.
say anything else. First one.
So do you agree with me that these two movies should be watched back to back? Gojira and Raids Again?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
because it is a sequel. It has to, like, yeah. I would watch those too. I wouldn't even watch the American version, that
Yeah,
third
I'll
one.
never watch it again.
I'd just watch those two and you're good, and go
Just
from
for the
there.
podcast and historical reference, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. So now it's time for the final words. The final words of this historical part of movie history. So this is where we wrap up with final thoughts and questions. Steve, what is your favorite Godzilla film? Period.
Godzilla -1.
Oh,
Pure masterpiece.
it's a
It tops
freaking
everything.
masterpiece.
Tops everything, yeah. -1.
What is your least favorite?
Well, the 98 Godzilla,
Good,
but
good call.
I also don't really like Godzilla 2000.
Oh,
I
I
I
never saw
this
that. I own
it's
it, but I
been
haven't watched it yet.
this past week when I was at work, it's been on a couple times. I
Okay.
don't remember which channel, but the dubbing sucks. I hate that he looks cross-eyed in it, and yeah, it just doesn't do it for me. So
Okay,
I
I
would
will
say
watch the
those
review
two.
and give you my opinion.
Yeah,
Because
I
that'll
don't
be a
like.
podcast years down the road. But
Yeah,
but
but yeah, I would say those two. But yeah,
interesting. Okay. What is your favorite MonsterVerse Godzilla movie? So of the recent Americanized ones.
Godzilla vs Kong.
Godzilla vs. Kong, really?
Yeah.
With Mecha Godzilla and stuff?
Yeah, my original answer before I changed it was Godzilla King of the Monsters, the first the
That is my
second
choice.
Godzilla font.
Yeah,
But I'm a fan of King Kong. I like that one better. I mean, I'll probably end up liking the new one the best, hopefully. But yeah, I would have to say Godzilla vs Kong. I just like the fight scenes.
see me. I'll have to watch. I mean, I'm going to be watching Godzilla vs Kong again. As we
Yeah.
build up to the new movie. But I really loved King of the Monsters 2019. I really loved it. Um, I am a huge Gojira fan, which gives an answer to a question I'm going to ask you in a second. But like, I thought like it was awesome seeing all modern versions of classic monsters and stuff.
Yeah.
I really liked it. So yeah, so that's my favorite. What's your least favorite?
Of the MonsterVerse films.
Yeah.
Probably. Huh. They're all decent. I don't know. That one's a tough one. Probably Skull Island?
Hmm. Interesting.
But I mean, even that one was good.
Well,
So, I mean, that would probably be my lowest one. Yeah.
I think my lowest one is probably the 2014 Godzilla movie.
Is that the
Only
one where the
Bryan
first time we
Cranston is
see
in it.
him, the new
Like, well,
version, right?
what's that?
The first time we see the new version of Godzilla, you're talking
Yes.
about.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I
I
like that
only
one.
say that because it was kind of billed like we would see more Bryan Cranston in it.
Mhm.
And the story, like him trying, like the story of Quicksilver or Kick-Ass trying to find his wife, Scarlet
Yeah.
Witch, who eventually becomes his sister. Um,
Uh,
it I don't think it was as strong. I kind of liked more so this father-son story.
yeah.
Like the father losing his wife and like the dad not being around because he's so obsessed with this mystery. I kind of like that a little bit more. But Bryan Cranston, he dies pretty early in the movie.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and then like there are parts in the movie that are kind of pretty drawn out.
Yeah.
It's not horrible. It's not a horrible movie.
That's what I
It's
mean.
just
It's
I feel it's
like,
the weakest.
yeah, but I feel like it gave a good representation of how big Godzilla was gonna be. I think it showcased him pretty good to
Yeah,
start out.
yeah.
That's why I was like, it was more like a horror. It was kind of like actually like the first movie. You saw bits and pieces of them, and then by the end, you got the big scope of them and
I
just the
will okay,
destruction.
I will say I liked how we thought that Godzilla was like the only threat in this movie. And they
Yeah.
brought in these motos.
Hmm.
Um yeah, it's not that bad. Yeah, it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
hard to really
it's
pick a
hard.
bad one from that group.
Yeah,
None of
agreed.
them will be -1, but they're all good in their own ways.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. I gotta know. Who is your favorite Godzilla baddie?
Mechagodzilla,
Mecha Godzilla.
hence why I picked Godzilla vs. Kong.
Good choice.
And then, like, King
Gojira is
Ghidorah
always
was
one.
my second. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was somewhat involved in that movie,
I
Kong vs.
love that.
Godzilla.
I love that they went that way. That it was like
Pulled the
his original
brain into
head
the
was like, I
Mechagodzilla,
like that,
yeah.
man.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was badass. So, speaking of baddies or other monsters, our next episode for this month is going to be on King Kong 1933 and its history and significance. We might talk the 70s remake. As I'm putting notes together, we'll see like how little notes I might be. Well, you know what? Let's talk 1933, 76, and the 2005 franchise is nothing but reboots. Like, like, so I,
Yeah.
yeah, we might as well just talk all three different versions well, or four different versions, I guess, with
Yeah, I was
Skull
gonna
Island.
say Skull Island and then the Jack Black King Kong,
Yeah.
and then the
I
2
want
little
to,
ones
well, we'll probably talk Skull Island when we talk the new
later.
movies and stuff. I don't know. I'll space it out however I think works the best because I don't want podcasts to be more than 2 hours really. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, it does. The original King Kong has history significance. It's really important. So as this month of March, we're going to be building up to the new King Kong versus Godzilla movie or King Kong and Godzilla movie. And we'll also be talking about my favorite film, Ghostbusters. That's my favorite film of all time and a franchise I love so much. It's so near and dear to my heart. Like it is, love Ghostbusters. We'll, of course, be discussing the new film, Ghostbusters: A Frozen Empire. We'll be talking about the history of Ghostbusters coming up. And then in the month of April, we're going to take a break because it's my wedding anniversary. I'm going to be on vacation for a few weekends. Um, and I just need to take a little rest because I do have another podcast simply called Bryan the Guys, where we talk about nostalgia topics, mainly superheroes. We have a lot of fun there. Steve Weiser's been on that podcast. We have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So if you like this podcast and you want more of Gravely Amusing or to check out Bryan the Guys, you can find us at Gravely Amusing on X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Is just Gravely Amusing. If you want to know about superhero stuff and nostalgia stuff, maybe a little wrestling in there, Bryan the Guys is found on Facebook at Bryan the Guys, Instagram, TikTok at Bryan the Guys. If you want to find me personally, as I discuss other stuff, you can find me on X or Twitter. I prefer Twitter to call it. TikTok, Threads, Instagram as the Man Child of Steel. Thank you, my cousin, for joining me, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. I had fun.
I had fun with you. Like I love talking nerd stuff, man.
Uh,
So thank you, Steve. Thank you for joining me, man. I felt this was a great podcast. I think we taught a lot of stuff as the teachers that we are.
yeah.
So thank you, listeners. I hope this podcast thrilled you. I hope it shocked you. And if nothing else, I hope it left you gravely amused.